The metal ground shook beneath Jake's boots as another explosion echoed across the wasteland. Smoke rose from twisted pieces of their ship scattered everywhere like broken toys. The 19-year-old soldier pressed his back against a chunk of hot metal, trying to catch his breath. Everything had gone wrong so fast. Just 3 hours ago, they were flying through space, heading home after a long mission. Now their ship was destroyed. Half his team was hurt, and they were stuck on some strange planet with red dirt and purple skies. Jake looked around at the other survivors. Some were bleeding. Others just sat there staring at nothing. Commander Brooks was trying to help the wounded, but they didn't have enough medical supplies. Stay close to the cargo containers, Brooks shouted to everyone. We need to find anything useful before dark. The commander was a tough woman in her 40s who never showed fear, but Jake could see worry in her eyes. They all knew they were in serious trouble. Jake ran toward the wreckage with 2 other soldiers. His heart was beating fast, not just from running, but from the scary feeling that they weren't alone on this planet. The air felt different here, thicker somehow, and there was a strange humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Over here, called out Tommy, another young soldier. I found the emergency medical kit. Jake felt a small bit of hope. At least they could help the injured people now. He grabbed some water bottles from the scattered supplies while Tommy collected bandages and medicine. That's when the sky started to change. At first, Jake thought it was just clouds moving, but then he saw them clearly, 3 huge ships floating down from above like giant crystals. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, sparkling in the strange purple sunlight. The ships made no sound as they landed, which somehow made them even more frightening. Everyone get behind cover now, Commander Brooks yelled. The survivors scrambled to hide behind pieces of their broken ship. Jake found himself protecting a small group of civilians, a family with 2 young children, who were crying softly. The crystal ships opened up, and beings stepped out. Jake had never seen anything like them. They were tall, much taller than humans, with skin that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Their hair looked like liquid silver, flowing and moving even when there was no wind. They wore clothes that seemed to be made of light itself, shifting colors as they walked. Jake counted about 20 of these aliens. They moved with perfect grace, like dancers. But there was something powerful and dangerous about them too. One of them was clearly their leader. She was the tallest, and the others followed her movements carefully. The alien leader stepped forward and looked at the human survivors with eyes that changed color. First purple, then gold, then a deep green. When she spoke, her voice was clear and musical, but also cold. I am Princess Lyra of the Zephyrian Empire, she said in perfect English, which surprised everyone. You have crashed on our world without permission. Commander Brooks slowly stood up, keeping her hands visible. We mean no harm. Our ship was damaged in battle. We're just trying to survive. The princess tilted her head, studying the commander like she was looking at an interesting insect. Survival, she repeated the word slowly. An interesting concept. For such a short-lived species. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Short-lived? Who did she think she was? But he stayed quiet, knowing that one wrong move could get them all in trouble. The princess began walking among the survivors, examining each person carefully. Her strange eyes seemed to look right through them. Some of the other aliens carried devices that glowed and beeped, probably scanning the humans for information. Your species is primitive, the princess continued, but some of you show potential. She stopped in front of an older man who was badly hurt, with a wave of her hand. His wounds began to heal instantly. The man gasped in amazement. And so, did everyone else? We have the power to save your injured, she said. We also have ships that can take you to a safe world where you can live in peace. This sounded too good to be true, and Jake knew there had to be a catch. What do you want? In return, Commander Brooks asked, clearly thinking the same thing. The princess smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that made Jake's skin crawl. She continued walking among the survivors, her eyes scanning each face carefully. Then, she stopped. Jake felt his blood turn cold as those color-changing eyes locked onto his. He was crouched behind some cargo containers, trying to keep the family with children safe. The little girl was maybe 6 years old, and she was scared. Jake had been whispering to her that everything would be okay, even though he wasn't sure. It would be. The princess stared at Jake for what felt like forever. He tried to look away, but couldn't. There was something in her gaze that held him frozen in place. Around them, everyone went quiet, sensing that something important was happening. Interesting. The princess said softly, but in the silence, everyone could hear her words. This one is different. Jake's hands were shaking now. He didn't know why she was focusing on him. He was just a regular soldier, the youngest on the team, the one with the least experience. There were much braver, stronger people she could choose from. The princess raised her hand and pointed directly at Jake. Her voice rang out clear and strong, making an announcement that would change everything. That human will be mine. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. The family he was protecting gasped and moved away from him, as if he had suddenly become dangerous. Commander Brooks stepped forward, her hand on her weapon. Now wait just a minute, the commander said. He's one of my soldiers. You can't just take him. The other aliens started moving, surrounding the humans. Their beautiful appearance suddenly seemed much more threatening. Jake realized that despite looking graceful and peaceful, these beings were incredibly powerful and probably deadly if they wanted to be. I can do whatever I choose, the princess replied calmly. This is our world, and you are here by our mercy. Alone, I am offering you a fair trade. She gestured to the wounded humans. Medical care for all your injured, safe transport to a world where your species can thrive, and protection from those who destroyed your ship. All I ask in return is one human. Why him? Commander Brooks demanded. What makes him special? The princess looked at Jake again, and this time her eyes stayed a steady, deep blue. He shows courage without aggression. He protects the weak. Without being asked, these are rare qualities even among my own people. Jake found his voice at last. What if I say no? Then you all die here, the princess said simply. Your ship is destroyed, your supplies are limited, and this planet has many dangerous creatures that hunt at night. Without our help, none of you will see another sunrise. The weight of the decision pressed down on Jake's shoulders. Around him, he could see the wounded people who needed medical help immediately. He saw the scared children, the exhausted adults, the brave soldiers who had already sacrificed so much. How could he let them all suffer when he had the power to save them? If I agree, Jake said slowly, you promise everyone else goes free? They get medical help and safe passage to a good world. You have my word as a princess of Zephyria, she replied. Commander Brooks grabbed Jake's arm. Don't do this, kid. We'll find another way. But Jake could see in her eyes that she knew there was no other way. They were completely at the mercy of these powerful aliens. He looked around at all the faces depending on him, people who had families waiting for them, who deserved a chance to live. I'll do it, Jake said, his voice stronger than he felt inside. The princess nodded, seeming pleased with his decision. Wise choice. My healers will tend to your people immediately. She gestured to her followers, who began moving toward the injured humans with glowing medical devices. As Jake watched his friends and fellow survivors getting the help they desperately needed, he felt a mixture of fear and determination. He had no idea what this alien princess wanted with him or what his future would hold. But seeing the relief on everyone's faces as their wounds healed and their pain disappeared, he knew he had made the right choice. The princess approached him as her people worked. What is your name? Human. Jake Morrison, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Jake Morrison, she repeated, as if testing how the words sounded. I am Princess Lyra Vexthari. You will come with me now to learn what it means to belong to the Zephyrian Empire. As Jake was led toward the crystal ship, he looked back one last time at his fellow humans. Commander Brooks saluted him, and he could see tears in her tough eyes. The other soldiers nodded with respect, understanding the sacrifice he was making for all of them. The inside of the alien ship was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Everything seemed to be made of light and crystal, with walls that shifted, colors and surfaces that felt warm to the touch as the ship lifted off from the planet's surface. Jake pressed his face to a window and watched his old life disappear below. He had no idea what adventures, dangers, and discoveries waited for him among the stars. All he knew was that his simple life as a young soldier was over, and something completely new was about to begin. Jake woke up in the most beautiful prison he could ever imagine. The room around him was huge, with walls that seemed to be made of pure light. They changed colors slowly, shifting from soft blue to gentle gold to calming green. When he reached out to touch one, it felt warm and smooth, like touching liquid starlight. The bed he was lying on was more comfortable than anything he had ever experienced. It seemed to know exactly how he liked to sleep, adjusting itself to support his body perfectly. But no matter how amazing everything looked, Jake knew the truth. He was a prisoner, far from home. With no idea what would happen to him, he got up and walked around the room, exploring every corner. There was no door that he could see, just smooth walls everywhere. A large window showed the endless darkness of space, filled with stars he had never seen before. The view was breathtaking, but it also reminded him how far he was from Earth. And everyone he cared about, "Good morning, Jake Morrison," came a voice from somewhere in the room. It was Princess Lyra, though he couldn't see her anywhere. "I hope you slept well. Where are you?" Jake asked, looking around confused. "I am on the bridge of my ship," her voice replied, "but I can speak to you through the walls. This room responds to my thoughts and voice." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If she could talk to him any time she wanted, that meant she was probably watching him too. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Patience," the princess said. "All will be explained in time. For now, explore your new home. Touch the wall near the window." Jake didn't want to follow her orders, but curiosity got the better of him. When he touched the wall, it suddenly opened up, revealing a bathroom that was just as fancy as the bedroom. Everything was made of the same glowing materials, and somehow he knew exactly how to use the strange alien devices just by looking at them. After cleaning up, Jake found that touching different parts of the walls revealed more rooms. There was a sitting area with furniture that moved and changed shape to fit his body. There was even a small kitchen area, though the food that appeared was unlike anything he had ever seen. It looked beautiful and smelled amazing, but Jake was suspicious of eating alien food. Hours passed before Princess Lyra actually came to visit him in person. The wall simply opened up, and she walked through like it was a normal door. Up close, she was even more impressive than before. Her skin had that soft blue glow, and her silver hair seemed to move with a life of its own. She was wearing a dress that looked like it was made of flowing water and starlight. "You have not eaten," she observed, looking at the untouched food. "I don't trust it," Jake said honestly. "For all I know, it could be poison." The princess actually smiled at this, and Jake was surprised to see that her smile seemed genuine. "If I wanted you harmed, I would not need poison. But I understand your caution." She picked up one of the strange fruits and took a bite. "See, it is safe." Jake watched her carefully, then slowly tried the food. It was delicious, with flavors he couldn't even describe. But he still felt angry about his situation. "Why am I here? What do you really want?" "I want to understand you," Princess Lyra said, sitting down across from him. The chair molded itself to her body just like it had done for Jake. "Your species fascinates me. You feel things so deeply, so quickly. We Zephyrians live for thousands of years, but we rarely experience what you call emotions." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, confused. "We are a logical people," she explained. "We make decisions based on facts and reason. But humans, you make choices based on feelings, love, anger, fear, hope. These are almost unknown to us. Yet they seem to give your short lives such intensity." Jake stared at her. "You don't feel emotions at all?" "Very rarely and very weakly," she admitted. "It is considered a sign of advancement in our society. Emotions are seen as primitive, something that holds back progress and clear thinking." "That sounds terrible," Jake said before he could stop himself. Then he worried he had insulted her. But Princess Lyra looked interested, not angry. Tell me why, she said. Jake thought about it for a moment, without feelings. How do you know what's worth fighting for? How do you know who to care about? Love makes us want to protect people. Anger helps us stand up against unfairness. Even sadness is important because it shows us what we've lost and what mattered to us. The princess listened carefully to every word. Among my people, marriages are arranged based on political advantage and genetic compatibility. We choose leaders based on intelligence and logical thinking. Art is created following mathematical formulas for maximum efficiency. But what about happiness? Jake asked. What about doing things just because they make you feel good? Happiness is considered inefficient, she said. But Jake noticed she looked uncertain when she said it. Over the next few days, Princess Lyra visited Jake regularly. Each time they talked about the differences between their species. Jake told her about music that made people cry or laugh, about friends who would risk their lives for each other, about the feeling of watching a beautiful sunset. In return, she shared stories about Zephyrian technology and history. Jake learned that her people had conquered dozens of worlds, but always through logic and superior technology, never through passion or emotional drive. They saw themselves as helping primitive species by bringing order and advancement. But as Jake talked about human creativity, friendship, and love, he could see something changing in the princess's eyes. There is something I must tell you, she said during one of their conversations. I am to be married soon to a prince from another world. It has been arranged since I was young to create a military alliance between our peoples. Do you love him? Jake asked. Princess Lyra looked confused by the question. Love is not a factor in royal marriages. He is intelligent, strong, and will help our empire grow more powerful. That is what matters. But what do you want? Jake pressed. If you could choose anyone, who would it be? For the first time since he had met her, the princess seemed truly uncertain. I do not know. I have never considered such a question. That night, Jake lay in his comfortable prison, thinking about everything they had discussed. He was starting to understand that Princess Lyra might be just as trapped as he was. Only her cage was made of duty and expectations instead of glowing walls. The next morning, he woke up feeling sick. His head was pounding, and his skin felt hot. The alien atmosphere was affecting him badly. When Princess Lyra came for their daily talk, she immediately noticed something was wrong. You are ill, she said, her color-changing eyes showing what looked like worry. I'll be fine, Jake tried to say, but he collapsed before he could finish the sentence. What happened next surprised him completely. Instead of calling for servants or doctors, Princess Lyra knelt beside him herself. She placed her hands on his forehead, and they began to glow with a soft blue light. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, and gradually, his fever began to break. But something else happened too. For just a moment, Jake could sense what the princess was feeling. He felt her concern for him, her fear that he might die, and underneath it all, a loneliness so deep it took his breath away. At the same time, he realized she was experiencing his human emotions through their connection, his gratitude, his confusion, and something else he didn't want to admit even to himself. When the healing was complete, they stared at each other. In amazement, something had changed between them, something neither of them fully understood yet. That was forbidden, Princess Lyra whispered. Royal healing creates bonds that are not supposed to exist with other species. What kind of bonds? Jake asked. The kind that let us share thoughts and feelings, she said, looking both excited and terrified. The kind my people would consider the most dangerous thing of all. Jake realized that his situation had just become much more complicated. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore. He was connected to an alien princess who was learning to feel human emotions for the first time in her life. And despite everything, he was beginning to care about what happened to her as days passed. Their connection grew stronger. Jake could sense when Princess Lyra was happy, sad, or worried. Even when she wasn't in the room, and she was experiencing human feelings through him, wonder, hope, and something that scared them both because neither wanted to name it yet. Jake knew that this strange bond between them was changing everything, but he also knew that their two worlds were very different, and their growing connection could bring danger to both of them. The telepathic bond between Jake and Princess Lyra grew stronger each day. Jake would wake up knowing exactly how she was feeling, even if she was on the other side of the massive ship. When she was happy, warmth spread through his chest. When she was worried, his stomach would tighten with the same anxiety. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Princess Lyra was experiencing something even more amazing. For the first time in her long life, she could feel the full range of human emotions flowing through their connection. Joy felt like sunshine filling her entire being. Sadness was like a gentle rain that somehow made everything seem more real. Even anger, which her people considered the most dangerous emotion, felt powerful and alive in a way that thrilled her. "This is what your people feel every day?" she asked Jake during one of their walks through the ship's crystal gardens. The plants around them seemed to respond to her emotions, glowing brighter when she was happy, dimming when she felt confused. "Pretty much," Jake said, smiling at her amazement. "Sometimes it's overwhelming, but I can't imagine living without feelings. They make everything matter more." Princess Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were a deep purple color he had never seen before. "I understand now why humans create such beautiful art, why you fight so hard for each other, why you—" She paused, seeming to struggle with something. "Why we what?" Jake asked gently. "Why you love," she whispered, as if the word was sacred. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Through their bond, he could sense that she wasn't just talking about love in general. She was talking about something specific, something that was growing between them despite all the reasons it shouldn't exist. Over the following weeks, Princess Lyra showed Jake wonders he never could have imagined. They visited the ship's vast library, where the knowledge of thousands of civilizations was stored in crystals that glowed when touched. She taught him to read the beautiful Zephyrian writing that seemed to dance and flow like liquid light across the walls. They spent hours in the observation deck, watching stars and planets drift by as the ship traveled through space. Jake told her about Earth, about rain and snow, about oceans and forests, about the way the sun felt on human skin. In return, she shared stories of Zephyria, with its floating cities and singing crystals, where her people lived in perfect harmony but had never known the chaos and beauty of true emotion. "My people would not understand what I am becoming," Princess Lyra confided one evening as they watched a nebula paint the darkness in brilliant colors. "They would say you have corrupted me, made me weak and unstable." "Do you feel weak?" Jake asked. She considered this carefully. "No, I feel more alive than I have ever been, but also more frightened." When you cannot feel deeply, you cannot be deeply hurt either. Jake understood what she meant. Through their bond, he had glimpsed the weight of responsibility she carried, the loneliness of making decisions that affected millions of lives, the pressure of always being perfect and logical. No wonder her people avoided emotions. They were messy and complicated and sometimes painful, but they were also what made life worth living. Their peaceful time together came to an abrupt end when another ship arrived. Jake was reading in the library when he felt a surge of panic through his connection with Princess Lyra. He ran to find her, following the emotional pull of their bond through the ship's winding corridors. He found her in the main docking bay, standing perfectly still and formal as a tall, imposing figure approached. The newcomer was clearly Zephyrian, but different from Princess Lyra and her crew. His skin was a darker blue, almost black, and his eyes were cold silver that never changed color. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told. "No, Princess Lyra," the stranger said in a voice like ice. "I am Prince Kelther. I have come to finalize our wedding arrangements." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Through their bond, he could sense Princess Lyra's turmoil, duty warring with newfound feelings, the weight of expectations crushing down on the fragile happiness she had discovered. "Prince Kelther," she replied formally, "you are welcome aboard my vessel." The prince's silver eyes found Jake, and his expression showed mild curiosity. Nothing more. I see you have acquired a human pet. How interesting. I have heard they can be quite entertaining. Jake clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. Pet, he was about to say something he would probably regret when he felt Princess Lyra's desperate warning through their bond. This was not the time or place for human emotion. The human is a guest, Princess Lyra said carefully. He has been helping me understand his species better. Of course, Prince Kelthar said with a dismissive wave. I am sure you will grow bored of this novelty soon enough. Once we are married, you will have more important matters to occupy your attention. Over the next few days, Jake watched Prince Kelthar with growing dislike. The alien prince was everything. A Zephyrian was supposed to be logical, powerful, emotionally cold. He spoke about their upcoming marriage like it was a business transaction, discussing political advantages and military strategies without once asking what Princess Lyra wanted. Worse yet, Jake could feel how the prince's presence affected Princess Lyra through their bond. The joy and wonder she had been discovering seemed to drain away, replaced by the dutiful emptiness she had lived with for centuries. It was like watching a beautiful flower wilt and die. He is a good match for me, she told Jake one evening, though her words felt hollow even to her. Our union will bring peace between two powerful worlds. Many lives will be saved. But what about your life? Jake asked. What about what you want? What I want does not matter, she said. But Jake could feel through their connection that this was no longer entirely true. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyra did know what she wanted. And it wasn't a cold political marriage to a prince who saw emotions as weaknesses. The crisis came 3 days later. Jake was walking through one of the ship's corridors when he overheard Prince Kelthar talking to some of his advisors. They were discussing what would happen after the wedding, and Jake's blood ran cold when he heard his name mentioned. The human will be relocated to mining World Beta 7 along with the other survivors, Prince Kelthar was saying. It is harsh, but adequate for their short lifespans. Princess Lyra's fascination with their species will end once they are no longer convenient to observe. Jake realized with horror that Beta 7 was a death sentence. He had learned enough about Zephyrian worlds to know that their mining planets were barely habitable, designed for equipment and robots, not living beings. His friends, his fellow survivors, who had trusted him to save them, would suffer and die in that terrible place. But it was worse than that. Through his bond with Princess Lyra, Jake could sense that she didn't know about this plan. Prince Kelthar was going to wait until after the wedding to tell her, when it would be too late for her to do anything about it. Jake made a decision that broke his heart. He loved Princess Lyra. He could admit that to himself now. But he couldn't let innocent people suffer because of that love. He had to get away from her, had to break their connection somehow, before his presence brought disaster to everyone he cared about. That night, Jake tried to find a way off the ship. He explored every corridor he could access, looking for escape pods or shuttles. Anything that could get him away from Princess Lyra before their bond brought ruin to both their peoples. He didn't find a way out, but he did find something else. A recording device in his room that could store messages. With tears in his eyes, Jake began to speak. Lyra, he said, using her name without her title for the first time. If you're watching this, it means I tried to leave, and I probably failed. I need you to understand why. I love you. I never expected to. Never thought it was possible, but I do. You've shown me wonders I never dreamed of, and you've learned to feel things that make you more alive than any of your people have ever been. He paused, wiping his eyes. But love isn't just about what makes us happy. Sometimes it's about sacrifice. Prince Kelthar plans to send my people to Beta 7 after your wedding. I can't let that happen. I can't let my feelings for you be the reason innocent people suffer. So I have to try to get away, to break this connection between us, even though it will probably destroy me. Jake looked directly into the recording device. Don't blame yourself for any of this. You gave me the most amazing weeks of my life. You taught me that love can exist even between people, from different worlds, different species. That's a gift I'll carry with me always, no matter what happens next. He ended the recording and hid the device where she would find it. Then Jake made his desperate attempt to escape. knowing it would probably fail, but hoping that maybe, somehow, it would save the people he cared about most. When the ship's security systems caught him near the docking bay, Jake didn't resist. He had known this would happen, but he had also known that Princess Lyra would find his message. And maybe, just maybe, she would understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Princess Lyra sat in her private chambers, holding the small recording device with trembling hands. She had watched Jake's message 3 times already, and each viewing felt like a knife twisting in her heart. Through their telepathic bond, she could feel his pain even though he was locked away in another part of the ship. He tried to leave to protect his people, she whispered to herself. He was willing to sacrifice his own happiness for others. This was the kind of selfless love that her logical Zephyrian mind had never understood before. But now, feeling it, through their connection, she finally grasped what humans meant when they talked about love being stronger than fear, stronger than death itself. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Enter, she called. Quickly hiding the recording device, Prince Kelthar stepped into the room, his cold silver eyes scanning her chambers with mild interest. I trust you have been preparing for our wedding ceremony tomorrow, he said in his emotionless voice. Of course, Princess Lyra replied, forcing herself to remain calm. Everything is ready. Excellent. I have also finalized the arrangements for your human specimens. They will be transported to Beta 7 immediately after our union is complete. He spoke about human lives like they were pieces of cargo. Princess Lyra felt rage building inside her chest, an emotion so strong it made her hands shake. Through her bond with Jake, she had learned that anger could be righteous, that fury could fuel justice. Beta 7 is a mining world, she said carefully. Humans cannot survive in such conditions. Prince Kelthar shrugged. Their lifespans are short anyway. If some survive for a few years, they can assist with mining operations. If not, we lose nothing of value. Nothing of value? The words escaped Princess Lyra's lips before she could stop them. These are living, thinking beings with families, dreams, hopes for the future. The prince stared at her with surprise. You sound almost emotional about this matter. Surely you have not let these primitive creatures affect your judgment? Princess Lyra realized she was walking a dangerous line. If Prince Kelthar suspected how much she had changed, he might cancel their engagement altogether. That would mean war between their worlds, millions of deaths, and her people would never forgive her. But as she thought about Jake's sacrifice, about his willingness to give up everything for others, she found courage she never knew she possessed. I challenge you to the trial of worth, she said, her voice ringing clearly through the chamber. Prince Kelthar's eyes widened in shock. The trial of worth was an ancient tradition, rarely used, where its Zephyrians could compete to determine who was better suited for leadership. It hadn't been invoked in over 1,000 years. You cannot be serious, he said. The trial is meant for disputes of great importance. This is merely about some insignificant humans. This is about the kind of leaders we choose to be. Princess Lyra replied, standing up to her full height. It is about whether we rule through fear and cold logic, or whether we can find a better way. Prince Kelthar studied her for a long moment. If you lose this trial, you will marry me without question, and the humans will go to Beta 7 as planned. And if I win, one choose my own path, Princess Lyra said firmly. Very well, the prince agreed with a cruel smile. But know this, I have never lost a trial of any kind. Your emotions have made you weak, princess. Tomorrow you will learn the price of letting primitive feelings cloud your judgment. Word of the trial of worth spread quickly through the ship. By morning, representatives from both their worlds had gathered to witness the competition. The trial consisted of 3 tests: physical combat, mental challenges, and a final test of leadership wisdom. Jake watched from his guarded quarters through the ship's viewing system. He could feel Princess Lyra's determination through their bond, but also her fear. Prince Kelthar was stronger and had trained for combat his entire life. The princess had spent her time studying politics and diplomacy. The first test was hand-to-hand combat in a crystalline arena. Prince Kelthar moved like a machine, precise and deadly. His attacks were calculated and efficient. Princess Lyra struggled to defend herself against his superior strength and experience. But then something amazing happened. Through their telepathic connection, Jake felt an idea forming in Princess Lyra's mind. Instead of fighting like a traditional Zephyrian warrior, she began using tactics that felt distinctly human. She fought with passion instead of pure logic, with creativity instead of rigid technique. When Prince Kelthar expected her to block his attack, she ducked and rolled. When he anticipated a logical counterstrike, she feinted and struck from an unexpected angle. Her movements became unpredictable, fueled by the emotional fire she had learned from Jake. The prince grew frustrated as his perfect techniques failed against her chaotic, feeling-driven style. In his anger, he made a crucial mistake, overextending himself in a powerful attack. Princess Lyra used his own momentum against him, sending him crashing to the arena floor. The second test challenged their minds with complex puzzles and strategic scenarios. Here, Prince Kelthar's logical training gave him an advantage. He solved mathematical problems with machine-like precision and analyzed battle strategies with cold efficiency. But Princess Lyra had learned something from her time with Jake that pure logic couldn't provide. She approached problems with intuition and emotional intelligence, finding solutions that weren't just mathematically correct but also considered the feelings and motivations of the people involved. When presented with a scenario about governing a rebellious planet, Prince Kelthar suggested crushing all resistance with overwhelming force. Princess Lyra proposed understanding why the people were rebelling and addressing their concerns with compassion and compromise. The judges were divided after the second test. Both approaches had merit, but they represented completely different philosophies of leadership. The final test would determine everything. Both contestants were presented with a simulation of commanding a fleet against an enemy invasion. They had to coordinate multiple species, each with different strengths, weaknesses, and cultural values. Prince Kelthar treated all the species like identical tools, giving them orders based purely on tactical efficiency. He ignored their individual needs and motivations, focusing only on mathematical optimization of their abilities. Princess Lyra took a different approach. Through her bond with Jake, she had learned to understand how different beings thought and felt. She spoke to each species in ways that inspired them, appealing to their unique values and motivations. She didn't just command them, she led them. The warrior species responded to her appeals to their honor. The diplomatic species appreciated her requests for strategic wisdom. The peaceful species were motivated by her promises to protect innocent lives under her emotional, intuitive leadership. The diverse fleet worked together in ways that surprised everyone. When the simulation ended, Princess Lyra's fleet had achieved victory with fewer casualties and stronger unity among the allied species. She had proven that leadership wasn't just about cold logic and superior force. Sometimes, understanding hearts and minds was more powerful than any weapon. Prince Kelthar stared at the results in disbelief. "This is impossible," he said. "Emotions are supposed to make beings weak and unpredictable." "Perhaps," Princess Lyra replied, "but they also make us strong in ways pure logic never could." The judges declared Princess Lyra the winner of the Trial of Worth. She had earned the right to choose her own destiny, free from the arranged marriage that would have trapped her in a loveless union. But victory came with a heavy price. As news of her triumph spread throughout the Zephyrian Empire, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated her innovation and courage. Others were horrified by what they saw as corruption of their pure, logical way of life. "You have won your freedom," one of the elder judges told her privately, "but you have also divided your people. Many will never accept a leader who has been changed by human emotions." Princess Lyra felt the weight of this truth settling on her shoulders. She had saved Jake and his people, but she had also created a crisis that threatened to tear her civilization apart. Through their bond, she could sense Jake's mixture of joy at her victory and guilt at the trouble he had brought to her world. As she stood in the arena, surrounded by supporters and critics alike, Princess Lyra realized that winning the trial was only the beginning. Now she had to prove that a leader guided by both logic An emotion could unite to very different peoples and forge a new path among the stars. The real test of her worth was just beginning. 3 weeks after winning the Trial of Worth, Princess Lyra stood in her command center watching emergency reports flood in from across the galaxy. The Void Swarm had begun their assault on the outer colonies, and the news was devastating. Entire star systems were going dark, their populations consumed by the terrifying creatures that move like a single, hungry mind. Through her telepathic bond with Jake, she could feel his concern as he stood beside her. The connection between them had grown so strong that they could share thoughts and emotions instantly, even in the middle of a crisis. "How many ships do we have ready to fight?" Jake asked, studying the tactical displays that showed enemy movements across the galaxy. "That is the problem," Princess Lyra said, her voice heavy with worry. "After the trial, my people are divided. Half support my new approach to leadership, but the other half believe I have been corrupted by human emotions. My own uncle, Duke Murdane, refuses to follow my commands." Jake felt her frustration and fear through their bond. The Zephyrian military was split just when they needed unity most. Ships that should be working together were scattered across different command structures, each following different leaders with different philosophies. "What about Prince Kelthar?" Jake asked. "He has taken his forces to the far side of the Empire." Princess Lyra replied, "He claims he will defend his own worlds but will not fight under my leadership. He says that emotions will make us weak in battle." Through the large viewing window, they could see Zephyrian ships departing the main fleet. Every vessel that left meant fewer defenders against an enemy that had already destroyed dozens of worlds. Jake watched his friend's heart break a little more with each ship that abandoned her. "There has to be something we can do," he said. "Some way to bring everyone together." Princess Lyra turned to look at him, her color-changing eyes shifting from worried blue to thoughtful purple. "You have an idea. I can feel it through our connection." Jake nodded slowly. "What if we stop trying to choose between logic and emotion? What if we use both?" "Explain," she said, leaning forward with interest. "Your people are the smartest, most advanced species I've ever seen," Jake began. "But humans have something different. We're unpredictable, creative, willing to take crazy risks that sometimes pay off. The Void Swarm is like a giant computer that learns and adapts to logical patterns. But what if we hit them with something they can't predict?" Princess Lyra's eyes lit up with understanding. A combined strategy using both Zephyrian technology and human intuition. "Exactly," Jake said, excitement building in his voice. "But more than that, what if we prove to your people that working together makes us stronger, not weaker?" The plan they developed was unlike anything either species had attempted before. Jake would work with Princess Lyra to create battle strategies that combined the best of both worlds. Zephyrian logic would provide the foundation, but human creativity and emotional intelligence would add the unexpected elements that could confuse and defeat the Void Swarm. When Princess Lyra presented the plan to her remaining commanders, the reaction was mixed. Some were intrigued by the innovative approach, while others were horrified at the idea of letting human chaos influence their precise military strategies. "This is madness," declared General Zexhai, one of her oldest advisors. "We have fought battles for thousands of years using proven methods. Why should we trust the random thoughts of a primitive species?" Jake stepped forward before Princess Lyra could respond. "Because sometimes being primitive means seeing solutions that advanced thinking misses," he said calmly. "Your people are brilliant at analyzing patterns and predicting outcomes, but the Void Swarm learns your patterns and turns them against you. We need to be unpredictable." "And how exactly does a young human soldier propose to defeat an enemy that has conquered entire galaxies?" General Zexhai asked with obvious skepticism. Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. "By doing something they won't expect," he said. "By fighting with our hearts as well as our minds." The first test of their combined strategy came sooner than expected. The Void Swarm attacked a research station in the Kepler system, and Princess Lyra's fleet was the closest force available to respond. As they approached the battle zone, Jake could feel the tension among the Zephyrian crew members through his bond with their princess. Remember, Princess Lyra announced over the ship's communication system, "We are not just fighting for victory. Today, we are fighting to prove that unity makes us stronger than division ever could." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zephyrian ships moved with their usual precision and coordination, but now their tactics included sudden, intuitive changes that confused the Void Swarm's collective intelligence. When the enemy adapted to logical patterns, Jake would suggest emotional, unpredictable moves that caught them off guard. "They're trying to surround our left flank," Jake observed, watching the enemy movements on the tactical display. Standard response would be to reinforce that position, Princess Lyra mused. "What if we don't?" Jake suggested. "What if we let them think they're succeeding, then hit them from a direction they're not watching?" The strategy worked brilliantly. The Void Swarm committed forces to what they thought was a weak point, only to find themselves trapped when Zephyrian ships appeared from unexpected angles. The combination of logical planning and intuitive execution created a victory that neither species could have achieved alone. News of the triumph spread quickly through the galaxy. Duke Murdain and other skeptical leaders began to reconsider their opposition. Even Prince Kelthar sent a message acknowledging that the new strategy had merit, perhaps. His message read, "There is something to be learned from combining our different approaches." Over the following months, more and more Zephyrian forces joined Princess Lyra's unified command. Humans and Zephyrians began working together on everything from military tactics to scientific research. Jake found himself appointed as the first human Zephyrian cultural ambassador, helping bridge the gap between their two very different ways of thinking. The real test came when the Void Swarm launched their final, massive assault on the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. It was the largest battle in galactic history, with thousands of ships on each side fighting for the future of countless civilizations. Princess Lyra and Jake stood together on the bridge of her flagship, their telepathic bond allowing them to coordinate strategies faster than any communication system ever could. Around them, beings from dozens of different worlds worked side by side, united by a common purpose. "They're using everything they've learned from our previous battles," Princess Lyra observed as enemy forces deployed in complex formations. "Then let's teach them something new," Jake replied with a smile. The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence was incredibly powerful, adapting to every strategy the Allied forces used. But then Jake had an inspiration that could only come from human intuition. "What if we stop trying to outthink them?" he suggested. "What if we do something completely random?" It was the most illogical idea anyone had ever proposed in a major battle. But Princess Lyra trusted their bond, trusted the connection that had taught her so much about courage and love and the power of believing in impossible things. She gave the order, and thousands of ships suddenly changed course in ways that made no tactical sense whatsoever. The Void Swarm's collective mind, designed to analyze and predict logical behavior, was completely baffled by the chaotic movements. In that moment of confusion, the Allied forces struck with devastating effect. The combination of Zephyrian precision and human unpredictability created openings the enemy couldn't defend against. The Void Swarm, for the first time in their history, retreated in confusion. The victory celebration lasted for days across dozens of worlds. But for Jake and Princess Lyra, the most important moment came when they stood together watching the sunset from the palace gardens on Zephyria. The war was over, their peoples were united, and they had proven that love really could overcome any obstacle. "When I first pointed at you and said you would be mine," Princess Lyra said softly, "I thought I was claiming a possession. And now," Jake asked, taking her hand in his. "Now I know that love isn't about owning someone," she replied, her eyes shifting to the warm golden color that Jake had learned meant perfect happiness. "It's about choosing to build something beautiful together." Their wedding ceremony combined traditions from both worlds, creating something entirely new and wonderful. As they exchanged vows under the light of Earth's sun and Zephyria's twin stars, representatives from hundreds of worlds watched and celebrated the union that had saved the galaxy. But the most meaningful moment for Jake came when he saw his fellow human survivors in the audience, healthy and happy on the new world they had helped establish. Commander Brooks saluted him with tears in her eyes, and he knew that the choice he had made so long ago to sacrifice himself for others had led to something more beautiful than he ever could have imagined.